All right, here's the first story from the Daily Mail. Armed man who attacked FBI's Ohio field office is dead after 5-hour standoff. Suspect also attended deadly Capitol riot. Now, we don't know exactly to what extent he was at the Capitol riot. I think that maybe the Daily Mail's reporting something different. I've read a bunch of other sources. The New York Times says that he was there the night before, but he's not been charged with any crimes. But let's read and see what they say. Ricky Walter Schiffer was shot dead by police Thursday after he raised a gun towards officers around 3 p.m. State Highway Patrol confirmed. Schiffer had attempted to break into the office, prompting a 5-hour standoff with authorities. The body armor wearing suspect fled the office and was chased onto the highway. Man, copy editor, guys. Before abandoning his car by a cornfield on a country road just off of Interstate 71. The confrontation came as officials warned of an increase in threats against federal agents in the days following a search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Investigators say Schiffer was also at the U.S. Capitol during the January 6th insurrection, they report. All right, well, they reported this stuff. I'm going to pull up some tweets that we have. Travis View says the New York Times identified the Ohio shooting suspect as Ricky Schiffer. There is a Truth Social account using that name. On the same day, the FBI executed a warrant on Mar-a-Lago. The account made a call to be ready for combat, and I'm not going to read what he said next, but he called for extreme violence. Wow. In the end, one of the last things he said was that, I don't think we should read exactly what he said, but he explained that he thought he had a way to get through bulletproof glass. He was wrong. He did not. But this could explain why it was reported that he fired a nail gun at the FBI. Now, I read on NBC he fired at the agents, but perhaps they said towards them instead of at was because there was bulletproof glass he was not able to penetrate. But apparently this Ricky Schiffer guy on Truth Social was saying that he did it, and if you don't hear from him, it's because they got him or something to that effect. So I guess my view on things, obviously, George Conway. All right, I'm going to make sure I cite George Conway on this one. He said they crossed the Rubicon. This is anti-Trumper George Conway. They crossed the Rubicon, which is an insinuation that a faction of people have crossed the point of no return towards what? A civil war?
Yeah, there's no they. There's just some random dude that went crazy, in my opinion.
No. He's talking about the Democrats and the FBI.
Right.
Specifically. So, Ian, you've talked quite a bit about ancient Rome and stuff like that. The crossing of the Rubicon.
Yeah, it was forbidden in Rome. There's a river right outside the city, and if I get any of this wrong, just correct me in the chat, and I'd be happy to go over it again. But that it was illegal to ever bring troops across the river into the city of Rome. That was something they'd all decided. It was too dangerous. So when Caesar was off on campaign, he had however many hundreds, thousands of troops that just basically worshipped him. And when he decided he came back to Rome, he's like, they were going to try and put him on trial to strip him of his power. And he was like, you know what? No, I want Rome. He crossed the Rubicon with his troops, took the city, and they called it forever known as the crossing of the Rubicon. Is when you've taken that step, the one step too far.
And that was the start of the Civil War.
That was basically the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the empire.
So there was this leftist outlet that they were like, the far right is saying this, that, or otherwise, or something like that. And they said, Tim Pool said they crossed the Rubicon. And I'm like, yeah. And so did George Conway. Like, this is not a call to anything. It's a statement it's an observation. I think they did.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, obviously, let me just say one thing. This dude who went to the FBI field office must have really wanted Democrats to win. Because, we're months out from the midterm election, and surprisingly, he did exactly what the Democrats needed. He got violent, failed, and now the Democrats have their example of what's wrong with the right. That's why the craziest thing to me is like now is the absolute worst time for anything like that. And this is why I say violence doesn't work. We are months away from Republicans taking the House and the Senate in what the misery index predicts will be a crushing defeat. Except now in the past few months, Democrats have evened out in the polling. Something like this happens. I think we're going to see Democrats spiking in the polls because of this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this is the continuance of the January 6th hysteria. This is how they continue that line of conversation. But I think that we need to be a little bit careful in, knowing that this was the guy, because I was trying to Google which mass shooting was it where it was the brother that was identified. and it went on for hours. And this guy, like, he was getting calls. Do you remember? Was it Newtown?
I don't remember.
I don't remember which shooting it was, but there was a mass shooting where the brother was falsely identified. And so I would just, caution the expertise of whoever this guy is with QAnon. Right. Like, maybe it's not him, and maybe this guy.
Well, the New York Times said this.
Oh,
is the guy's
well,
name.
that's the
right.
Yeah, that's the beacon of truth and reality.
I mean, sure, but I guess the best thing we can do is.
I mean, I always just wait 24 hours.
Right. True. Fair point.
And even if it turns out that this is the guy, I don't think blaming a political party or a movement or any of that makes any sense, because this guy just went off the rails.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as the baseball shooter.
What's that?
The congressional baseball shooter. That was never blamed on Democrats.
Yeah, well, we had
it's a guy who I think he was like even maybe a Bernie Sanders supporter.
He was a Bernie Sanders volunteer.
Steve Scalise, and like he opened fire at the congressional baseball practice and almost killed Steve Scalise. I mean, very few people know about it because it was a story for like 0.3 days. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, January 6th, we've been talking about forever. But I mean, that violence, that was never crossing the Rubicon. That was never blamed on Democrats. It was just like, oh, it's just some crazy guy. Like, but maybe this is just some crazy guy.
This crazy guy right now, I don't think is a crossing of the Rubicon.
No, I
think
so.
The weaponization of the DOJ and Merrick Garland being like, yeah, I signed off on this. Is a crossing of the Rubicon.
Yes, and going into Melania's closet.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about this when Trump was saying he would lock up Hillary. Everybody was like, that would be a dangerous time in this country. And then what did Trump do? He said, we're not going to go after Hillary. We're not going to do it. And everybody was disappointed. But Trump was like, no, we're not going to do it. And they didn't. Yeah. Trump was standing at that river line. And he was like, no, that's too much. It's too much.
It's been a republic.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Hillary has her hats and her emails hats. She's campaigning already, or at least fundraising.
Emails.
Go ahead.
I think I watched Merrick Garland. He did a speech today, the official explanation. They said they're going to unseal the warrant to explain why they invaded. Is that the right word? Trump's house? I don't know what the word is here.
Raided.
Yeah. They said, but don't call it a raid.
It was a raid.
Yeah, I mean, they went in there, unannounced. Or maybe they announced themselves right before they went in.
Well, they did. They went to the lawyer. They said, get out. We're going to go do our thing. Apparently, they kept the cameras rolling.
So Rubicon, I don't know. Jury's still out. I want to see what the warrant said. Maybe there is always the possibility that Trump was doing something extremely nefarious,
and a warrant wouldn't prove that.
Okay,
but it would not. A warrant is their accusation of
or maybe they wiretapped him and then they heard him say, we don't know.
I mean, it's hard not to view this as a complete fishing expedition, right? I mean, why would you write?
I'm sorry. It's hard not to view this as anything other than fake and weaponization. Why? Because of Russiagate. Because of Ukrainegate, because we know they had fabricated evidence and manipulated evidence already. So, forgive me, Hillary Clinton's email server we looked at, they said, there's no criminal intent. Fine. Then they smear and lie about Trump. They should have stopped the investigation into Russiagate long time ago. Yep. What happened? A lawyer fabricated a letter or something? It's been a while since I covered this story. But anyway, sorry, I digress.
All I was going to say is that, to me, this warrant, we've heard the story that there was a room that had a padlock on it that had the documents that they're requesting. When you write a warrant, you have to be specific about what you're asking for. So theoretically, Garland signed off on a warrant that said we want complete and unfettered access and we want the right to not announce because we think that they'll hide stuff. That, to me, indicates that it's a grab. They want to get as much stuff as possible and then maybe justify it later when they're like, oh, but look what we found when we showed up there. Yeah, well, in Melania's closet, there were all these secret things that we knew about.
So to understand, what is it called? The fruit of the poisoned tree? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
There's the exclusionary rule.
Yeah.
And this states that if your rights are violated and evidence is found, that evidence is inadmissible in court. So there was one story I remember reading about back in Illinois of a guy who they thought he was a murderer. And so a cop ran his plates, pulled him over, and then while he said, get out of the car, illegally searches the car, finds evidence. Send in the evidence. Turns out the stop was illegal. The lawyers get it thrown out. Exclusionary rule. You cannot use evidence seized in violation of someone's rights. With this, you get a warrant for something like classified documents. Then once you're inside, if you have a warrant, and you enter a home looking for, say, classified documents, and you find pills and a gun, that's now admissible. So anything they found in the house, perhaps this was a fishing expedition, or Trump suggesting they're planting evidence. That's a bold claim.
Yeah, that's the first thing that crossed my mind when I heard about this story. What if they plant? Like, how can you confirm or deny if they did that?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
I was gonna say, think of there's like been over 100 subpoenas that have been issued through the January 6th subcommittee. When you subpoena people's documents and records, you can ask broadly for tons and tons of stuff. They aren't being specific in what they want, and that to me shows that they are kind of grasping at straws. Like they are wanting you to turn over stuff so that they can figure out later what you did wrong. That's creepy.
Yeah.
Is this the kind of thing where they can fabricate a warrant after the fact and make it look like they had it back in the day?
No, we know this guy, this Epstein-linked judge signed off on it. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.